We were called out one night off Liberty, and the captain says, "We're taking off right now. Everybody get their stuff ready, and we're leaving. We can't tell you where we're going. We cannot, you can't contact your families. You can't do anything until we tell you, but we're going potentially into harm's way." Now, for us who were the spies and so forth, we didn't know anything that night, but of course, the next day in our spaces, we were told where we were headed. But I still didn't know why. I didn't know what the reasons for all that were. But we take a few days, go to Rota, Spain, pick up some civilians there, three Marines and a couple of civilians there that were linguists because this war was going on. So we copied code, we did telemetry, we copied the languages, and so therefore we had to make sure we were prepared for anything going on in that area where we were headed. And so on June the 8th was any other day in our lives. We were running our ship, doing our things, and doing our work. And we knew that we were potentially in harm's way because we were sitting off the coast of Egypt, about 13 miles, international waters, and we saw bombs going off and smoke and all those things. So we knew there was a war going on there, and you wonder why you're there. But my shipmate and I were up in this Trescom basket. It was a big moon crater basket we had on the back of the ship. If you saw a picture of the ship, you would see that. That was used to transmit messages through the moon, through beaming off the moon every month in the full moon time. We would communicate with NSA with all of the stuff that we had captured, and all the deciphered stuff that had to be deciphered would be sent to NSA. And so my buddy and I were up cleaning that morning. It was a very sophisticated piece of equipment, very top secret. So it had to be done with hand gloves and all that type of thing. But it kind of put us closer to everything going on because these boxcar airplanes came out, and they started taking pictures of us. No big deal. Guess what? They had the Star of David on the side of their ship. So I felt pretty comfortable. I felt okay. They were waving at us. They were whatever. What they were doing with those cameras was photographing every piece of the ship. They came out 5 times that morning. And now, knowing the consequences of that day, they were going back to the war room with Mushy Diane or whatever and plotting out their targets. In other words, they were plotting out the targets that they had to hit. So if you have the mast of the ship going up and elbows coming out or arms coming out with little antennas sitting on all those mast posts out there, they not only hit the mast where they took out all the wiring on the mast, they hit every single antenna. They knew exactly every piece of equipment on that ship to shut us down instantly, okay? Because at 2 o'clock that afternoon is when those jets came, in a beautiful, gorgeous day. We had done a general quarters drill. We had practice. We had done everything. So I'm getting ready to go back up in that basket with my buddy Jimmy, and we were up there. He's down in the shower, and then I'm up on the back of the fantail of the ship, and all of a sudden this bomb comes out of the sky that looking directly at the sun and strikes our mailman, this missile, and then the explosions, and you say, what the hell? And then all of a sudden, whoosh, going over your head is another jet going over your head, and that jet came across the bow of the ship to wipe out what's called anti-personnel weapons. There were 9 or 10 people standing up there on the bridge. So they wiped all them out just instantly. And then they came back for 2 other strafes. But in those strafes, they went from armored piercing to anti-personnel weapons anti-personnel weapons. Then they went to armored piercing so that the missiles they were shooting would break the metal on the side of the ship. And then the shrapnel would kill all the people inside of those rooms. If you ran out of harm's way, you ran into a room of shelter, then you get hit with shrapnel from the 3-inch cannon coming through. The shrapnel is what ripped people to pieces. And so we had that. In that same time of those jets hitting our ship, they napalmed us. That's a jelly gas. You've seen Apocalypse Now, where you see all that jelly gas going. That's what they did when they're burning that ship. Once that first jet came, what am I supposed to do? Phil is supposed to go around and close down all the ship. He's supposed to go around, make sure everything's secure, check everybody out, do everything on the top side of that ship. My job was to go down to my spaces down below into my coded door room and do my job. Well, under attack, what am I supposed to be doing my job? But I went to the post that I'm commanded to go to in case of a crisis. And so that's where I went. And then we could hear the piercing coming through the metal and things, but we didn't know what was going on. I didn't see that napalm. I didn't see all those things going on. Phil watched all of that. Okay. It's what makes our story so compelling, because you're talking to a guy that lived in this world and a guy that lived in this world, and we were on the same little box. Right. Okay. And there were 294 total of us living in that box. And all 294 experienced something different that day, depending on where they were, okay? With only one intent, was for us to try to live, because somebody was trying to kill us and we had no way to fight back, okay? But that's why you get my story, Phil's story, why your listeners will understand more, that no human and no crew members ever doubted the intent of Israel was to maliciously attack us and have us disappear. Remember, they wiped out every antenna, they wiped out everything in the first strafe of that jet. We were dead. We had one guy, Terry Harbardier, who went out in a coaxial wire, hooked that wire up and got one message out. Under attack, believed to be Arabs. One message came back: help is on the way. Now, for a little later in the story, you'll hear help is on the way. Okay, so that would make you feel pretty good if you got somebody coming to help you. So anyway, and stop me anytime if you have a question through this. But as the attack is going on, I'm going to say then everything stopped. The ship went completely silent. Nothing. We're not communicating. We're not having any news from anybody. The captain is saying nothing. I don't know how bad he's been injured. He's been shot and wounded critically, and never gave up his helm to the ship. And but anyway, that 20-minute lull, all of a sudden, you hear on the speaker, the captain comes over the loudspeaker and says, "Prepare for torpedo attack." Now, I'm down there with my friend Jimmy. We're up in that basket. He'd come out of the shower. He didn't have his shoes on because that's general quarters. So he was basically almost in his underwear, and because he had to run down to his battle station. So he had no shoes on or anything. But anyway, the captain says that, and I heard in your early conversation some foul language. So I'm going to say, I just looked at my friend Jimmy and I says, "So how the fuck do we prepare for a torpedo attack?" Nobody ever taught me that in boot camp, or taught me that in any studying in the Navy or whatever. So what's ironic is I saw a table over beside us there where we were standing, and I said, "Jimmy, why don't we go over there and lay down and wrap our arms around that table leg and put our heads down, see what happens?" And the next thing you know, this torpedo hit. There were about 45 of us in that space. And that torpedo hit, and I remember falling, but I wasn't falling. I was blown to the ceiling and the pipes. If you can imagine the impact of a torpedo that blows a hole 39 feet wide and 24 feet high in the side of the ship, it lifted the ship out of the water. So how fast do you think myself or any other was flying to the ceiling? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or moving, or what was going on, or where the person 3 decks away from me might have been blown to, just because they were somewhere else. And I'm right there within 20 feet, 30 feet of this torpedo coming in. What saved us is divine intervention saved us. And that torpedo, when it pierced, it's supposed to pierce, implode, and then explode and blow the ship in half, and the ship sinks. Okay? And that was their targeted position to do that, where they put the torpedo. But anyway, there was an I-beam going down the side of the ship, and the torpedo tip struck the I-beam and caused it to explode on impact. So that hole's huge, okay, 34 feet wide, or 39 feet wide and 24 feet high, but it still saved over 200 lives because it only killed 25 of us in that room. Because again, had it come in and split, the whole ship would have sunk, and their mission would have been accomplished. USS Liberty disappears in the Bermuda Triangle. Whatever, you know what I'm saying? It's gone. It's gone. And who blew it away? Of course, the Arabs did it. Who else would do it? And so anyway, that's what happened right at that point. And then, do you have any questions, or do you want me to?
I'm like fascinated. Like I'm fascinated. Like, and I have been on aircraft carrier before, and so I have like a very good visual. Yeah, I was on the USS Saratoga a long ways back, which is why when you were saying that there was a swimming pool and bowling and all this stuff, and I'm thinking, not on one I went on, there wasn't any of that stuff there.
You have a better chance on an aircraft carrier. There's a little more room, but anyway, so after the torpedo hit in my life, I'm unconscious apparently, but everything is split second. Everything feels like 3 minutes, but it's microscopic seconds. All this stuff's happening. And so when I woke up or whatever, we're completely covered in water. The water was about 1.5 feet from the ceiling, full of black oil, black smoke, everything. And I was in the process, like anybody else, I'm alive, but I'm probably drowning. I mean, I don't know where to go. I can't see. I don't know what to do. And I reach up and I grab a shirt, and it's my buddy Jimmy. And I grab him. And so I'll try to explain. The torpedo hits the starboard side of the ship, comes in. There's a room. There's a little tiny metal wall, little 1/4 inch thick partition, so to speak, with a door going into that space. Then there's a ladder standing there going up for it to come out of the 3 spaces, one at the bottom of the ladder, one to the right of the ladder, one to the left of the ladder. And I'm in the one left of the ladder. But anyway, going back in there later, that wall's gone. The wall on the other side of the ladder's gone, and holes are blown out the other side of the ship from where the torpedo entered. So there was one ladder. And how did God's hand had to hold that ladder there in place for 20 of us to get out. Okay. And we got out through a little hatch hole there and got out and survived. When you come out of the hole, the place is full of smoke. It's burning up. I remember the guy that helped get us out of the hole, Buddha. He was there. Wouldn't leave that hatch until, as a matter of fact, the hatch had to be closed. And then there was somebody else, I believe it was one of the Marines, opened it back up to go down and try to find a couple of his buddies. And of course, they were never to be found, but he came out. But then we come out, and it's so black and so smoky and gassy and whatever. And some jerk, Porky, I remember Porky, he yells, "A chemical attack." And now all of a sudden we've lived out of this hole. Then he's yelled chemical attacks. Now we think we're all going to die from mustard gas or whatever. We don't have any idea. But it's the panic of the moment. So I'm just kind of running through you what went through my mind. And we got up topside, and then you say, "Wow, I'm up, get in the air," and you walk out, and you see your ship burning. You see it in flames. You see a helicopter coming over, hanging over the bridge of the ship, and they threw a bag out with an orange in the bag with a message in it. Do you have casualties? Are you kidding me? Do you have casualties? The gun mounts are filled with blood where the guys are going up. We had 4 50 caliber machine guns on our ship that were rusted, closed. They didn't work. And but guys tried to use those guns. They tried to fire those guns to defend us, and lost their lives doing that. But then the rest of that day becomes you're there either trying to survive yourself or save somebody else. And we turned our mess decks where we ate into 2 hospital beds, and watched people in that area suffer. A couple die. Our commanding officer, no, our not executive officer, our second in command of the ship, was laying on the table, and he yelled to one of his cronies, and he says, "Hey, go upstairs and get me some bourbon or whatever," and to his room. So the guy goes up there to get his bourbon. And then he says, "Leave me alone." And he's bleeding and he's in bad shape. He says, "Leave me alone. Take care of the other shipmates." And he bled out right there and died in the next minute or so. But he wasn't even going to let anybody touch him as long as he knew somebody else he felt was in worse shape and needed help. And, we had people, I helped a guy that night. This sounds awful, but I had to put a straw, and I had to suck out of his throat with a straw to keep him going.
Yeah.
Pardon? Yeah, and he'd gotten hit in the head with 220 millimeters or whatever, and they pierced through him, and he lived. And he never was ever well enough to talk straight or anything like that. But I found out years later that he'd lived. And but the second somebody tells me that you go do something else, you don't know what all you're doing, and I didn't even know I was hurt. I had no idea that I'd been injured with my head and my leg injury, but which were nothing compared to what so many other people suffered. As I said, out of that 294 people, 34 died, 174 were wounded, and I was one of the fortunate ones that my wounds were enough to take me off the ship and the next day, but I never had time to think about that. But after this part, story even gets much more interesting. I don't know how much time I'm taking here.
I just want to ask you, what's the time frame that we're looking at here from when the first strike to when you kind of everybody has their bearings and you set up in the mess areas where you're doing, like, how much time is that?
Less than 2 hours. Okay, so the attack, they say, carried on for 2 hours. Well, there was the attack, there was the lull, 20 minutes. There were the torpedo boats. There were, matter of fact, 3 torpedo boats. They fired a lot of bullets at us. There were 821 holes knocked in the ship. And but anyway, they fired, I think, 4 or 5 torpedoes. How in God's world the other 4 missed, I don't know. But the one hit in the worst place to split the ship in half, but in the best place to hit an I-beam, and we didn't sink. And it's kind of ironic. And that's why I say divine intervention stepped in at that point for us. But, then during that time afterwards, I may be getting a little ahead of myself, but the captain calls abandoned ship, or not needing to say abandoned ship, prepare to abandon ship. And because we were listing so bad from the torpedo, and Israel shot our life rafts out of the water. If you've made an accidental attack, mistaken identity, it's what they say it is. If you've made mistaken identity and you think I'm a little Irish something boat sitting over there, it's a third of my size or whatever, the first thing you're not going to do is drop a bag with an orange in it to say, do you have casualties? Okay. And you're not going to, you're not going to shoot their life rafts out of the water. If you didn't sink it, the first torpedo, you're not going to leave till you've sunk it completely. The thing of it is that they knew within a few minutes, because it took 20 minutes from the Saratoga aircraft carrier you were talking about, Jim, and from the America aircraft carrier, planes were loaded because we got one message out. I'm going to go back to the thing I said earlier. Help is on the way.
Right.
Okay. So now that message got out. Help is on the way. So they loaded the Saratoga up with 4 jets with conventional weapons. Conventional weapons are intended to come and help us out at our site of our attack. Whoever's attacking us, we still don't know who's attacking us, okay? And help us out there. And you don't leave anybody behind in the military. You don't leave anybody behind ever or whatever. So anyway, then where was I going with this? I get a little ahead of myself. But no, excuse me a second.
No, it was the you're on the lifeboats. Like it's you're able to get out and then they come back and do like a double tap.
Yeah. So anyway, I completely lost my train. Bear with me, your audience.
No, it happens to me all the time.
But anyway, after I'll just go back to after the attack. We all went. We are there. They didn't help coming to us. So they loaded the 4 planes off the Saratoga. Then the America aircraft carrier loaded 4 jets with nuclear warheads, and those nuclear warheads were sent off toward Cairo. Now, Admiral Martin, the commandant of the 6th Fleet, did not have the power to fire any nuclear weapons. That's the only person who can do that is Lyndon Johnson. Okay. And, but anyway, I was on his ship in the hospital because the American aircraft carrier was so full of all the injured. 5 of us went over to the Little Rock, the commandant's ship of the 6th Fleet, a guided missile cruiser, in a helicopter. And that's where we stayed for 4 or 5 days. And we were there, and Admiral Martin came to our bedsides that evening. He says, guys, he says, I did everything I could to help you. And of course, I'm a kid, man. I'm 20 years old. I don't, what all's going on. And here's this guy with all this gold all over him. And he says, I loaded up these 4 planes from the Saratoga to come and help you. And, but I had to call him back. And he says, I had the 4 planes loaded up going to Cairo. He says, we potentially came within 9 minutes of nuking Cairo, Egypt. In other words, the potential that could have happened. We were that close to a potential nuclear holocaust on June 8th, 1967. Think that how that might have changed the landscape of our world today. We're here talking about the Middle East and all the things going on over there. If I recall, I think Russia was prepared to strike Israel at the same time. So June 8th, 1967 was a big day in history that we now have enough confidence to feel that Lyndon Johnson and McNamara were involved in that attack. I have not heard the tape, so I have been questioned on this, but We understand that Lyndon Johnson said, "Let the son of a bitches die. I will not jeopardize my relationship with Israel." But I have not heard that tape, so I shouldn't be quoted. I'm just going from what I've been instructed and told from other survivors. But go ahead.
What I was going to say is I only go based on actions, and the actions of whether it is the state of Israel or I guess what you would call those that are part of Hasbara, those that are pro-Israel supporters, commentators, influencers, if you will, in this country. Whenever the topic of the USS Liberty is brought up, it's either it's a lie or it's a misunderstanding or it's both. There is never an admission that this was an attack that could have been deliberate. They won't even address that. And the way that it's been whitewashed for the past almost 60 years, I would imagine really sticks in your craw pretty thick. I can't imagine going through that and then for the next 6 decades trying to get anybody on Capitol Hill to do something about this, but knowing full well what you knew then to what you know now, and understanding just how much there is this intertwined, unholy alliance between the powers that be in this country and this asinine, genocidal state in West Asia. See, I didn't say Middle Eastern.
Thank you.
It has to, I mean, I didn't live it. And in my mind, I live it like a soldier thinking, I put my life on the line for you sons of bitches, and this is how you repay me? That would be something where I don't know how I would be able to control myself. And the least we can do with our channel and with anyone that we collaborate with is to not let this story die until justice is done. What does justice look like in your mind?
Well, justice to me has always been is to have people who are interested and want to hear our story. And we've been telling our story to a dead room, a dead curtain for the last 57 years of these 59 years. We've been talking to, a quick example, my good friend, rest in peace, Johnny Isaacson, former U.S. Senator from the state of Georgia. We belonged to the same country club. I used to drink with him on Friday evenings if he was there or whatever. And so he was my friend, and he knew my story. I gave him a couple books. I had the author's autograph it for him. He said he read them. And he says, but I can't really help you because I'm in charge of the Israeli lobby. Okay. I says, I'm not asking you to do anything about that then. I'm asking you to help Moe Shafer personally. I can't get my benefits. I'd like to get my benefits from my injuries and so forth, which took me 56 years to get. I just got them 2 years ago. Okay. And no back pay. And so, but he told me that he would try to help me with his office and so forth, but he never did anything. All he had to do was call his cronies and say, you make sure Moe Shafer is taken care of next week or whatever, because he knew the story. He knew exactly what happened and did all that, but he didn't. And, you know, he died as my friend, but I still never forgave him for not caring, because he didn't believe it or he didn't accept it. He may have believed it, but and I have to say this too, because everybody has different beliefs of how we're taken as anti-Semitic, or I'm here talking about this because I hate Israel. I have so many Jewish friends; it's unbelievable, and I mean close friends, and I look at it on June the 8th of 1967. People were mowing their lawns or going to their swimming pool or doing their stuff, going to the lake, doing whatever, doing their thing. And the Israeli Defense Forces were doing their thing along in cahoots with the United States. And they decided to put us as a false flag in harm's way and put us there so that we could better our position, they and us together in the Middle East, and take over the whole thing. And that's what Lyndon Johnson's goal was to do. So we were pigeons. We were put there, and I believe even to the exact location we were sitting, we were put there because we have a message we were asked to leave by the Pentagon, and the message by mistake went to the Philippines, and we never got it.